Morning, everyone. I'm just going to give a brief overview of what, from an admin perspective, what we do at our school based on our school goals, and then the teachers will kind of show what that looks like and what they're doing in the classroom. So generally speaking, when it comes to EQAO, historically we've done very well in reading and writing. Those don't seem to be challenges for us. However, the math portion has challenged us over time. Especially in grade 6. In grade 3, we see our numbers go up and down. And in grade 6, it seems to be more challenging. So basically, when we're looking at the EQAO results as a staff and as a learning team, we're taking a look at those and trying to derive our goals, our own school goals, through that. Generally speaking, what I tend to do as an administrator is we meet with our learning team in May. And we, based on that and on bringing it back to the staff, we decide what kind of goals we're going to work on. So we take a look at the goals we worked on in this current year. Are they working? Are they not? Do we need to tweak them? And so on. And you know, those are going to be fluid because come September, when we get the results from EQAO, we tweak them a little bit more at that point too. So it's responsive to what we're seeing our results look like. What we've seen over the past few years, this is my 6th year now in the school, so I have a pretty good understanding of the mistakes and the challenges and what we're good at and what we're not at the school. And over the past few years, one of the things that we've noticed is that we don't do very well in the multiple choice questions. So comparatively to the open responses, we have difficulty with the multiple choice. And when you have difficulty with multiple choice, that can significantly bring down your marks. So we feel that really it's those answers to the multiple choice that are bringing us down. When we delved more deeply into the actual questions that in the IRRs and the questions that we weren't doing very well on, one of the things that we noticed was usually the mistakes that the students were making was that close answer in the multiple choice. So it's not the far off one, it's not the one that's kind of close, it's the one that's close to it. And teachers felt that the reasoning behind that is that students they look at that multiple choice question and they kind of circle the first thing as it occurs to them, rather than really thinking through that question and analyzing the question and understanding why the right answer is the right answer. So we wanted to kind of slow that process down for students and kind of force them to take a look at all the answers and know for sure that, for example, if the answer is D in a multiple choice, that the reason why it is D. So what we decided as a staff is first of all, besides incorporating more multiple choice, is to have kind of a box beside the multiple choice, and students would have to take a look and explain in the box why A, B, and C cannot be the right answer, rather than why D is the right answer. So it kind of forced them to think through it more critically and analyze the answers so that they were confident that D is the answer. The grade 3s worked on this last year a little bit more. We kind of just came up with this. As I said, goals are fluid, and when we get some ideas, we try and put them into practice. So January, February, we started working with the grade 3s on this a little bit. We had good results in EQAO, and we felt that the teachers in grade 3 felt that the work on doing the multiple choice that way helped. So now we're doing it as a school. Obviously, it's not just grade 3 and 6 that you have to worry about, it's the grades leading up as well. So as a school, we're focusing on that, analyzing the multiple choice questions. In addition to the multiple choice, the critical thinking component is another school goal that we have around math. What does that mean? Basically, what we're trying to get staff to do is not just to have a bonus critical thinking question on a test. That critical thinking needs to be part of the regular daily lessons that you're doing in class, that you're using questions that are more open, that it has multiple entry points. So if you're a grade 6 teacher, a grade 4 student in your class might be at a grade 4 level, that they're able to at some point come in with an answer to that question in some way, or if they're at grade 7 level, that they can answer that question as well. So it also has to be a question where students are able to reflect and justify their answer and so on. So thinking of better questions. And lastly, we've been working for quite a few years around technology. So the third piece to that is incorporating technology into math and having that part of our goals as well. So how did we do this as a school? This year, what we've done, and you're going to see some examples here in a minute, I always do a half-day release for teachers at the beginning of October. Why the beginning of October? Because I really feel that early on in the school year, it's important to get teachers thinking and working around the goals that we have in our school. By January, by December, it's too late. We want to start those goals going right from the beginning of the year and get teachers thinking in that mindset right from the beginning. So all teachers on my staff had a half-day release that I paid for at the beginning of October. And during that time, I paired them up with someone else, and the whole half day was for them to work on critical thinking questions in math. Within that, we asked them to think about how you might be able to incorporate multiple choice in there and how you might be able to incorporate technology. But the overall thing was the critical thinking piece. I do use strategic partners when I'm partnering teachers up. I don't use grade level partners for a couple of reasons. One is I feel that they already work with their grade level partners. And secondly, when we're specifically looking at critical thinking and I want to have more open questions, if I pair, for example, a grade 4 and a grade 6 teacher together, that conversation will come out better, I feel, if the grade 4 teacher is there to say, oh, you know, my kids would never be able to answer that question. There's nothing that they could kind of get into that question with. So just having another perspective from a different grade level, I think, opens the conversation better. So that's basically what the teachers work on. And that at every staff meeting, we have about 15-20 minutes. And I give them the schedule far ahead of time. So tonight we have a staff meeting actually. And the teachers that were paired together, the two that I picked, I think I have 4 that present at each staff meeting. So the 2 will present it. And then as a staff, we talk and think and reflect around those questions. So was it a good critical thinking question? Why or why not? How did the students react, and so on. So you hear from the teachers, and then we have a conversation as adults around it. Basically, I'm trying to set up the staff meeting as we would like teachers to do in their own classroom. We want them to be, the kids to be talking and reflecting around the question. Well, as teachers, we do that as well. The second thing we do at staff meetings is there's always some kind of take back or bring portion that we have. So tonight, for example, teachers are bringing just some samples of some of the multiple choice questions that they've been using so that we can sit in smaller groups and think and reflect. Is it a good multiple choice question? Why or why not? Is it open? Can it be open? Could we open it more? So those are the kind of conversations that we have at staff meetings around that. And we also look at the student work. So they're supposed to be bringing some samples from what we call our high 5. Those are 5 students that they've picked out that are below provincial standards. That they can show some samples of their work, and that way as teachers we can take a look at it and say what can we do to intervene and help those students. So that's kind of the gist of what we're doing at our school, and Megan's going to go on to explain what her presentation looked like. She presented last month around critical thinking, and then Daniela is going to explain how she jumped off that idea with critical thinking and how she used it in a financial literacy unit in her classroom. So I'll pass it over to Megan.
Thank you. My team and I came up with the Which One Doesn't Belong puzzles. I'm sure many of you are familiar with them, but if not, I'll give you a brief explanation. So basically they're thought-provoking math puzzles that promote critical thinking. They are really great because they can be applied to any subject across the curriculum and any strand in math. So really any expectation you want to cover can be covered using these puzzles. So basically there's 4 boxes with different items in each box, and students are asked the question, which one doesn't belong? There are multiple answers to the questions. There's more than one that might not belong, and there's more than one reason why they might not belong. So this allows for multiple entry points because students can take the skill set that they bring with them and apply it to the question in a way that they're able to. It's great because it also focuses on that critical literacy or critical thinking piece, reasoning, improving, communicating your understanding, addressing those mathematical processes. So as I mentioned, these kinds of questions can be applied across the curriculum The example you're going to see next is a number sense example, but you could easily change the question to be for data management or geometry, whatever it is that you need to cover in your expectations. So we created a hallway math activity. So basically on a giant chart paper out in the junior intermediate corridor, we had a question, an open question with some markers and 4 numbers, 9, 16, 25, and 43. And the question was asked, which one doesn't belong? And we had a great response. Students from grade 4 to 8 contributed. They came up with all sorts of great answers. You can't really read them up there, but I'll kind of explain a few things they came up with. So the younger students noticed right away odds and evens. So they would say, oh, 16 doesn't belong because all the other numbers are odd and it's the only one that's even. They talked about place value, saying that 9 doesn't belong because it's in the 1s and the other are in the 10s. And then we had older students, so grade 7s and 8s, contributing ideas, and they talked about things like prime and composite numbers. So 43 doesn't belong because it's a prime number and all the others are composite. Or perfect squares. 43 doesn't belong because all the other numbers are perfect squares. We even had some of our staff writing answers up on there. They came up with things like all the digits add up to 9 in 3 of them, except for 43. It doesn't, it adds to 7. And then we even had students coming back. No one had really written an answer for 25, and they would just stare at it in the hall during recess instead of going out, trying to figure out a way that they could come up with something for 25. So lots of engagement and multiple entry points across grade levels, so that's really, really great. As Kelly had mentioned, one of our focuses is integrating technology as well into mathematics. So we did this in a variety of ways with this activity. The major way was through Twitter. So there is a hashtag, WODB, that you can search on Twitter and share information with. You can find all sorts of sample problems to come up with. You can ask other teachers in your professional learning network if they have ideas. You can share your students' responses and compare them to students from across the world who've answered the same question and think about, whoa, they came up with this one, and that's another way of thinking about it. As well, you could share this on Padlet, so students are immediately sharing their ideas. You could come up with a rule, you can't say the same thing as somebody else. There's lots of things that you could do. And then in my class specifically, we've been doing a lot with digital portfolios this year. So we have shared these problems and student solutions on our digital portfolios, whether it's My Blueprint or Seesaw or whatever it is. And students are then sharing it with their peers and with their parents at home. So parents are seeing the work they're doing, and parents are even answering the questions themselves. In my class, we post a daily math or a weekly math challenge, whether it's a mashup math or an estimation station or a which one doesn't belong problem. And you will literally get, it'll be 10 o'clock at night and I'll have, pings on my phone saying that, oh, my son and I, we looked at the problem and we solved it this way. And you can talk back to them and give them feedback immediately, and it's a really great way to get that homeschool connection going. So finally, integrating that multiple choice piece that our school is focusing on because of the EQAO results. The which one doesn't belong problems really work nicely for multiple choice. There's a sample question there which was about equivalent fractions, and we add that box in, either a show your thinking or a work it through box, whatever you want to call it, so that students are encouraged to actually work through the problem and justify their choices instead of just randomly guessing what they think the solution should be, which is often the instinct. If you're overwhelmed by a question, just go, oh, it's C, right? So this kind of forces them to think it through and answer it. And you're working towards eventually eliminating the box and having them have built that skill, that strategy to actually work out the problem.
Okay, so I promise I'm going to keep this nice and brief. So as November was Financial Literacy Month, we decided to incorporate financial literacy and critical thinking and technology all together. And basically our goal was just to make math real life for the students, just to answer that question, why are we learning this? So it actually brought numbers alive to students and gave numbers meaning. So this was a sample question that we did with the grade 6s. Basically, students were asked to go house shopping on Realtor.ca with a certain budget, And not only did they have to find 3 houses that were in their price range and in their budget, but they also had to compare the houses, so the pros and cons to each. They had to decide on the house that they wanted to purchase, and then they also had to justify their decision or why they chose that specific house out of all 3 houses. So this was for our number sense unit, so it touched on many math expectations such as comparing numbers, representing numbers, ordering numbers, but it did much more than that for students. So if you notice in some student examples, students took this to another level. They engaged a lot of their math processes, and they started to consider multiple factors. So yes, if they were given $600,000, maybe a house of $599,000 wasn't the best choice because they needed money for renovations, or they needed money in their bank account to live. So they started thinking about these things naturally, which brought everything alive for them. And they were using resources and problems that they would actually experience in real life. And they wrote up a check for a bank and whatever they had to do just to go through the whole process of purchasing a house. So as you can see in the question, it's a very flexible question. It can be altered for many different grade levels or many different academic abilities. So in a grade 5 class, this might look like car shopping because they're working with the 10,000s rather than the 100,000s. And even in Megan's class with her grade 4-5, she actually did this for grocery shopping for a birthday party. So the question is very versatile, but the point is you're keeping the verbs in your question, the wording in your question very open-ended. You're encouraging students to decide, to compare, to justify. And those are the verbs that are actually going to get students critically thinking. And these are the verbs that they will actually see on EQAO as well, which is a good connection and good preparation. So for a tech connection, my goal was to really use real life technology. What might you see in the future? What might you have to use in the future and be able to use properly? So we used Realtor.ca. We also use Google Maps and Google Earth. So students were able to go on Google Earth, locate the homes that they were interested in, look at the communities, and then the communities became a deciding factor for if they were going to purchase that house or not. So maybe their house was located in a court beside a park, and they wanted to have children. So that was a good house for them, even though it was a little bit more expensive than another house. So it actually became really real. And then on our Google Drive, we collaborated with each other. We looked at each other's houses. We celebrated each person who bought their first home at 11 years old. So it was really a really good experience for the kids to go through. So yeah. And as a multiple choice piece, it's a similar question around budgeting. So if you have this much money, what is reasonable? And that's a big word that we're working on. What is reasonable? Not what is the answer, but what is a reasonable answer. So again, there's a think it through box. And ultimately, you can change this question to any subject. It's very cross-curricular. We actually changed the question for our biodiversity unit in science. We talked about government and budgeting for the environment, and we just tweaked the question in so many different ways. So incorporating this multiple choice piece across the curriculum in every subject area, just so that students become really familiar with the skill. And that is all. Thank you.